Good morning. My name is Brian Plucino. I am the Assistant Director for Facilities and Student Retention for Residential Life, and I'm also the co-chair for the annual, I think I'm comfortable saying annual now because we've done it for so many times, panel discussion to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Over half a decade ago now, the institution was sitting around our committee for MLK Day and said, what can we do to engage more of the local area students? And we came up with this idea for this panel discussion. It started with us being in a position where we had staff and faculty, and it's gotten to the point where it is now, where you, the students, get to be the panel. At this point, I want to start off by welcoming Brian Jackson up to give opening welcoming remarks. I believe his title, when we do the video, will pop up and show you who he is. Brian Jackson, I've known him for, over a decade. It's been a pleasure knowing him, and it'll be a pleasure inviting him up to give opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. It's really a delight to have all of you here at our Atlantic City campus. How many of you have been on this campus before? Okay, just a handful. So for those of you who are new to our Atlantic City campus, I really want to welcome you, and I hope you enjoy your experience while you're here. First, I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the planning committee for today's event, our co-chairs, Trish Collins and Brian Plucino. Trish, you want to raise your hand so they know who you are? As well as the other members of the planning committee. We have Ms. Sharon Hunt, and Ms. Diane Stalling, and Lisa Warnock, who I'm not sure if Lisa's here today. Okay. So your conversation today is going to focus on the role of youth in the movement, changing the disenfranchised to engaged. So today, we continue to be challenged repeatedly by incidents that have called into question the stability and progress that we've made in race relations and in establishing equality and equity for all persons and groups. For all the progress that we've made, there's still a great deal that still needs to be done. So we have to teach and learn and listen and understand and interact more with one another and be ever vigilant in our efforts to confront ignorance and unethical and discriminatory behaviors wherever we encounter them. There are roles in this work for each of you as citizens, students, educators, activists, and community leaders. So Stockton, for those of you who may not be aware of this, we're a state institution, and the state a few years ago designated us as an anchor institution. And as such, we have the responsibility to be a catalyst for change in our communities. We are poised to do this as part of ensuring that our students are well prepared to learn from experience, question the status quo, to be open and respectful of diversity that enriches all of our lives, and to be prepared for the rigors of adulthood. So I expect that by the end of today, you all will be walking away with a greater appreciation and understanding of the power that you have as individuals, as students, and as a collective to really influence positive change in your schools, in your neighborhoods, and in our society. So again, I hope you enjoyed today's panel discussion, and I do appreciate all of you for being here today. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. So to give you an idea of how we will proceed, we will start off by having our panelists introduce themselves. I know, you'll be all right. And then we will discuss the main topic. The panelists will have an opportunity to talk a little bit about what they think that sentence means to them. And then I will guide us through having a perspective of having a larger discussion, which will then break down into tabletops. At that point, you'll have a leader come to your table and help to lead the discussion, where you'll be able to talk a little bit more about some of the things you're feeling, thinking, have seen, have experienced, and hope to experience. Then we'll bring it back to the full group, and with this mic on my right and to my left at the other end, we'll have runners come to your tables. We'll have the opportunity to talk about what you discussed at your table, and then allowing everyone to reflect a little bit on that. And it'll be a guided discussion to put us in a position where you have an opportunity to make this whole room really the panel by the end of it. So as you all can see right here, the role of youth in the movement, changing the disenfranchised to engaged. And so I'll ask, starting immediately to my left, if you can tell us your name, what school you're from, and a little bit about what you're thinking with this. All right?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sanada Smith, and I am from Pleasantville High School. I am a sophomore, and I have many opinions on the topic that we will be discussing today that you will find out soon.
Thank you. Oh, you still going? Are you good?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Sorry.
We'll go next.
I'm Ileana Todorovsky. I go to Egg Harbor Township High School, and I believe that activism should first be rooted in how we educate kids from a young age.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is James Scott. I'm from Absegami High School. And what I think about the topic is just, in general, people should be aware of what goes on around them, because if you don't see, you can't make comments on what's actually there.
Good morning. My name is Mecca Muhammad. I'm from Atlantic City High School, and I'm a senior. And what I think about the topic, I think that it's just like giving the youth a voice and believing in them, because we are the younger hand, and most of the time we don't, like, our voice is not respected because we're younger. I just feel like the youth should be a part of this and make an impact.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. So at this point, if I can ask, first and foremost, explain to us, and we'll go, in order here, or if one of you is like, wow, I really want to talk, we'll go that route too. We'll start the other end this time. Is that better? Wonderful. And so let's talk about first with this kind of a topic. What do you think your role in this is? Yours, the people sitting in front of you, and the people back at school who weren't able to attend with us today. What do you think your role in this all is?
So I feel like our role is most important because as the younger generation, we are affected by it more. We're going through, we have to live for it, and the younger generation, such as our siblings, they have to go through it. I feel like our role is the most important in this.
Okay.
I feel like our role is just to take the baton that was passed on to us from our predecessors and take it to another level, to look at things through the fresh perspective that we have as younger people, and then make changes based on what we say.
What was the question again?
What do you believe that your role, their role in this movement is?
I believe that our role is to, just as they said, just as you said, continue our legacy, the legacy that has been passed down to us, because as young people, we have that stamina and optimism needed to become activists and make a change.
I feel that our role is what all three have already mentioned, and that to keep each other positive. I feel that if we keep each other more positive, who doesn't like positive energy? And make everything feel so much comfortable, especially towards each other.
This portion will let you mix it up. It doesn't have to necessarily be in order. Where you sit, not physically at the moment, but just in general, have you felt disenfranchised? Have you felt that your voice as a younger generation is not heard? And what has made you feel this way?
Of course, as younger people are always going to be criticized by older generations, but even though that's not always the case, I feel like younger people do not get enough credit, and respecting the wisdom of the people who came before us is especially important, but also it's important for older people to embrace new ideas of our generation as well.
Anyone else?
I feel as a youth and the older people, we all have been disenfranchised. Like everyone in this room have been in a moment where they felt disenfranchised, and we have to take that and look at be open-minded and look at every aspect of the situation, and not just, oh, they're too young to understand, they don't know any better, and oh, this is the old way, this is the traditional way. We need to start fresh and have a clean slate and figure out what we need to do as a community together, older generation and younger generation, because that's the best way we're going to get a positive impact and the best situation to come out of it.
Yeah, I agree.
I would like to say that disenfranchisement comes in many different forms, like you spoke on earlier. We have made great strides, but there's still, a pretty decent way to go. So it's just taking a look at things through the eyes of the youth and how they have changed, and also respecting the people that have, paved the way before us, but also trying to see what else there is to be done, how things have been either disguised or presented in front of us, and then making movement from there. Yeah.
And it's not all just about age. There's also where you come from. Right now, there's such a political divide. I feel like now, especially, it's important for everyone to sort of see both sides of the coin instead of the polarity of black and white, left and right.
I agree. I also think that it's not all about age, but it's about your community, because we're all from different communities, different neighborhoods, and we all have our community are different. When I walk outside, I don't see the same thing that they see outside. So it's about your community and what's going on in your community and how can you affect and then bring to light and fix the problem in your community, rather than trying to fix it as a whole. I should start as small points as community, neighborhoods, and then move on to regions and stuff like that.
I want to read something to you. It's a quick little thing, and I want to get your feelings on it and what it means towards trying to move forward as the larger community that it is our country. Research done by the Pew Research Center, who is in charge of social and demographical trends, had this to say: in this upcoming election, non-whites will account for 1/3 of all eligible voters, the largest percentage that has ever been in this country. At that rate, Gen Z will be 1 of every 10 voters. What do you feel the importance of minority votes when they can be 1/3 of the entire voting body? And in addition, the fact that young voters, millennials and down, will have the largest share of votes they've ever had as well.
So just to, okay, so you said we have more?
The minority vote will be the strongest potential that it has ever been in the history of our country.
Okay.
1 of every 3 registered voters are projected to be someone of minority background this upcoming election.
I would first like to say that is great. Most changes start within yourself, and then you voice those changes to your governing system. So if people that have been, repressed or not really considered now have the choice to stand up and vote on things that they believe in, then that's the beginning of something greater, a bigger change.
Right, and it doesn't even matter what you believe in. It's all about standing up for that and standing up for what you believe in, no matter what it is, left, right, you know.
Everyone voices matters.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But I feel like it's really interesting, and that a lot of people of color, and you said a lot of young people as well, our generation, Gen Z, registered voting, and because I know in the past, young people haven't, well, and there's been, past elections, people were like, oh, my vote doesn't really count, but awareness, like raising awareness about your vote actually mattering, and is really important. Like all over social media a few years ago, everyone was like, please go out and vote, please go out and vote, everyone's vote matters, and that really brought to light, and now there has actually been impact now, so that's wonderful.
Well, I feel as a minority myself, we always had like the short end of the stick. So for that to be a change, it gives us like hope and light. Like now we're being considered, and now our opinion matters. So this is going to give like people who don't go out and vote and say, oh, it's not important, they're going to like, our vote doesn't count anyway. I feel as though this is going to give us like the motivation for us to go out to vote, especially kids at a young age. They don't like what's going on in our country and they want to change. Oh, with that, I feel like it's going to boost to like the young, like the ratings of the voting and everyone else who doesn't vote, and it's just going to give them a voice, because right now they feel like we don't have a voice, and it's going to give us a voice.
But you're right, but first for people to go out and vote, they need to be able to and have that access. And believe it or not, there's still some places around the country where the nearest voting ballot, do they still call it a ballot or a poll?
Polling center
Poll.
is fine, yeah.
Yeah, where the nearest poll is like miles and miles away. So first, those need to be addressed, because it's kind of pointless to say, oh, everyone go out and vote, when so there's some people who don't have that opportunity.
I would also like to add that we have to take into account all the distractions that are currently around us. Just taking a look at social media and how it's so influential in most young people's lives, you tend to make a political opinion based off of what you see. And as you guys are aware of, there's millions and millions of different opinions out there. So we have to increase the amount of resources and knowledge for people to make fact-based decisions, so therefore they can get a political stance and then go out and vote.
Yeah, education for all is very, very important. And helping your community by maybe getting a local library card, educating yourself, try to do your best for your community as well as yourself, and supporting your local businesses. As I said, getting a local library card, maybe starting like a book club with your friends. It's as simple as that can just broaden your horizons to see both sides of the coin.
A common theme in what all of you were just discussing was that you feel like your voice is not listened to, that you feel as though you're not engaged, you feel as though the disenfranchisement is real. What do you feel is something that can be done by you, for you, so that you and your peers can help yourselves feel more engaged, whether it's in voting or your community or being part of the positive change moving forward?
I think it starts with belief. Like once we can believe that we can make an impact and that we can change, it gives us an inner confidence, and then confidence is going to show like, oh, we're serious about this, and shows the maturity level and how we need to be respected as equal, no matter the age, just to get this done. Like, it starts with belief in yourself and then belief in the younger community.
To add on to what she was saying, I feel that we need to educate each other too. There may be some people who don't really know a lot about politics, but then you may have that one friend who knows a lot about politics. So I feel that if we educate each other, let each other know what's going on in the world, what can we do to change, that maybe it'll open their minds to be willing to help make a difference.
Also, doing just basic community service, like on MLK Day, on Monday, me and some of my friends in this room, we went to the beach and we cleaned. We just picked up, and it made me feel really happy that I felt like I was making a difference, and I felt like not only was I helping my community, but I was, saving like pollution and stuff. So, and it especially felt really nice when people were walking by us and saying, "Oh, thank you so much for doing this." And if you see like an opportunity to help out your community, like a food drive or even a blood drive, urge your friends to participate in things like that and make a day out of it.
I feel as though we all should go in there with an open mind. Like, we all need to be like accepting on what other people have to say, rather you don't agree with their opinion, because that's when it starts to everything starts to get all, I can't find a word right now. Like, everything starts to get all like messed up, and everybody's just angry because they can't agree on an opinion, when it's not an opinion we should be agreeing on. Is like different situations on what we need to fix, what we need to speak about, and not just right or wrong, because there's various different ways you can be right, rather than finding one solution. It's not just one solution.
There's never really like a big T truth. It's always a little T truth. There's no actual thing that's really set in stone. So what I've come to realize is the problem is never on one side or the other. It's always more somewhere in the middle. It's always about compromise. So
I would like to add that in order to get the youth engaged, you sort of have to create the conversation and create a safe place for people to speak their minds and suggest possible solutions. So currently in this time, people are usually afraid to speak their minds and their opinions, no matter what they are. So if you create a place where people can safely speak on different things, you can create the opportunities to make a change. I believe you said making like a book club or something. I think that's a great idea. So if you create like a little small community, and then you encourage other people to join along and make different suggestions, and then, get the ball rolling and making things change.
And I love what you said about having a safe space, because and I feel like that environment should be more enforced in our classrooms specifically, because in school I feel like everything is kind of about regurgitating information instead of really thinking for yourself and processing and having open questions and open discussions. And that's why I love taking history classes like my African American Studies class, because we learn a lot, but we also talk about how we feel about certain topics, and it's a safe space where even if you don't agree, even if someone doesn't agree, we never attack each other. It's always pretty much judgment free. And I feel like that should be more enforced in how we educate children.
I agree with that, but I think we first have to start with bringing the discussion up, because there's times where we don't want to bring up the situation. No one wants to actually say what's wrong because they don't want to be that person. So before we have safe spaces and book clubs, we need to have the discussion on like what are we actually here for, instead of like disregarding the situation and throwing it under the carpet. We need to figure out what it is, and people need to actually be able to say it for themselves, because a lot of people don't want to bring up, oh, well, the youth don't, like, a lot of people don't want to bring up the truth. Like, the truth hurts for some people and they can't say it, so.
Who do you think should bring it up first? Do you think bringing it up should be the job of like our generation, like us, or should it be the teachers that?
Well, not just teachers. I feel as anyone, like, if I see the problem, I feel like we should speak out, but we're so scared to speak out because we don't want people to be like, oh, well, that's not true and that's not right, because it's your opinion. If you see a problem, you should speak out on it.
Right.
And just like you say, you have like your African American studies. With my hip hop culture class, we all talk about what's not talked about, like racial issues and stuff like that. Stuff we can't really speak about because we are the minority, or it's not respected, and like stuff like that where we feel comfortable. We need to create that environment, like with the clubs that you guys are talking about, but it needs to start with actually discussing the issue and bringing up that topic, because that topic is so hard to come about. It's so hard to speak out on it because no one wants to be the one to bring that up.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, love that one.
All right, that's really awesome that you all are starting to get into that flow of asking and answering each other, so kudos to you. I know this is a little bit of a nerve-wracking experience, but you all are doing great so far. Furthering that conversation, multiple times it was mentioned about safe spaces. And the concept of a safe space to provide individuals of like-mindedness the ability to express what they're feeling and how they're feeling regarding different topics and ideas. There's also another concept out there called brave spaces. And for brave spaces, it's the idea, the concept that when you leave your safe space, instead of just going out into the world and having just the background of being, I can go back to that safe space, brave spaces being created are the idea that instead of drawing our own segregated lines of, I believe, and you touched a little bit on left versus right and whatnot, it's the idea that I believe this, and in my safe space, I can discuss it. Brave spaces are this ideology of what essentially we wish society could be once again, in that you can come together with other people who exist in their own, maybe different point of view, safe spaces, if you will, to have these conversations. If I disagree with you about something, we can go to this space where we know we'll be respectful, we'll discuss, and we may not walk away agreeing, but we'll walk away knowing the other person heard us out, let us say our piece, and we gave them the same respect back. So can you reflect a little bit on what you feel it would take to create a brave space for you being youth?
I feel like a safe space can be a brave space,
Okay.
of course. So I have tons of friends that don't agree with me on certain things. I have family members that don't agree with me on certain things. And around those people and like certain classroom environments, we all respect each other, and I feel, by safe space, I mean I feel safe voicing my own opinion. So, in order to speak your own piece, I feel like first you should be able to listen to someone else's point of view without being sort of standoffish or just being stubborn. So I believe that safe space and a brave space can be the same thing.
See, I agree with that, but I want to stress, like, open-minded. Like, to be in a brave space, you have to be open-minded. You have to be able to listen to other people's opinion. You don't necessarily have to agree on them, because you could say one thing and I don't agree, but I'm still here to listen to your opinion, because that's you speaking your brave space, and you're coming out and speaking your truth, and my truth and your truth could be two different truths. So to be open-minded and to listen to both situations would be the brave space. Like, I can voice my opinion, you can voice your opinion. At least you were hearing me out. You don't have to agree, but if you hear me out, that's when that respect level, and that's when, like, we all can just move on about our day and, like, just at peace. We don't have to be all arguing and debating because we don't agree. We all should just be open-minded. You don't have to believe in anything anyone says. So.
I would like to add that I believe the brave space starts within yourself. Like, you yourself can be a manifestation of bravery. Me personally, I go to Apsagami, and we are the home of the Braves. So, yeah, that's sort of like I found a correlation there. And my personal experience is, I ran for president every year of my high school experience. And although I didn't get it, I became brave in standing up and saying what I had to say and going for what I wanted. So with that being said, you should have the ability or the strength within yourself to say, these are my beliefs, and I'm going to say them, and I'm going to be confident in what I say. Because if you don't stand for anything, quite frankly, you're going to fall for everything.
Right. So that is exactly the word I was waiting to come up, confident. I feel that confidence is definitely a big part in the brave space, even if it's just a safe space too, because you're getting it out of you. You're not letting it sit and balled in and just let everybody else have their opinions and not speak your own mind. Like I said before, everybody's voices count. And if you feel a certain way, you should be able to express yourself and wouldn't have to feel bad about it at all. So.
But my question is, when do you start? When do you start enforcing this brave space and this coexisting safe space? Is it too much of a complex topic to teach, like, fifth graders? Or should we not wait and start immediately, to listen to others,
I feel like this is something that could start at home.
Right.
If a child feels that they can't talk to their parent, that could automatically put them in that safe spot to where they only talk to themselves. I feel that that child will eventually come out to their parents about anything or whatever. That is what brings the confidence, and then that brings the brave space, but that's within the family. Now, it could also travel through school, through outside of school. Them knowing that they'll be able to express their opinions, express their however they're feeling to their parents, that gives them more confidence into doing it with other people.
I think it should start as a child. It should never be like, oh, when should we start? It should always start. Our parents should always teach that, oh, you need to have the confidence and speak up for what's right and what you believe in. I mean, that's what I was taught. I was told if I feel as whatever I feel, I need to say it. So I always had that, like, I could talk to my parents about anything that I wanted to say, rather they disagreed or agree with it. And going into school, you have to have that attitude, because there's going to be people who don't believe in you, and there's going to be people that's going to, like, discourage you. But if you believe and you have the confidence, you can say and do whatever you want to do, and not saying, like, for all the not even just negative things, but if I believe in something and I want them to hear me, I'm going to say it. And it starts as a child. Your parents should teach that. That should be taught in you before you even get to school. So when you go to school, you already know.
Another thing, I keep that mindset. I keep the mindset of saying something, because what I may say may change the world, slowly but surely. It could be something as small as just knowing your surroundings. Like, if you say something, somebody else could take that into consideration and be like, hey, well, let's do this. I like what you said. Let's do that. Like, it could change your community. It could change your school. It could change the people you hang around. I feel that. I keep that mindset just for that specific purpose.
Please.
Sorry. Building off of what she said, I definitely do believe that there's different avenues to get the message across, to get success in general. Say, for example, if you have like an orange crayon and everybody's using that orange crayon, right? And then you have like yellow and red. They don't realize that by combining together, they make orange. So you get the problem solved. So you guys in this room have to get together and have to create those conversations, break down those walls, get a little uncomfortable, and therefore create movement.
I absolutely agree.
I'm very glad that I didn't cut you off for that part, huh? The last thing I will ask of you, and then we will break into our tabletop discussions. What is an opinion and what is a fact?
Okay, so this is funny because I was just like talking about opinions and facts. Well, what I was taught was a fact is the common opinion where everyone agreed on and created a fact. But opinion, I feel it's like what you believe, and it may not necessarily be true, and there might be different variables to the answer, but the variable that you pick is what you believe. And a fact, I feel like a fact is like it's like
Set in stone.
yeah, it's set in stone, but I feel like what type of fact are we talking about? A fact as in like 1 + 1 is 2. That's a whole different type of fact. Like a fact for like this type of discussion, I feel like they're all opinions. It's no fact. Because we all have different opinions. We all have different mindsets, and what you believe is a fact may not be a factor to me. So.
I feel like there's tons of gray areas, especially when it comes to ethics and race and how humans associate with each other and how we group ourselves. And all of that is sort of rooted in how we are raised, you know? So the difference between fact and opinion is maybe there is none. I don't know.
That's what I'm getting at. There's like, how can you tell what a fact is and what an opinion is? Because if I say something and I believe it's a fact, I'm gonna keep saying it because it's a fact to me, and it may not be a fact to you. So it's like, what is a fact?
So, fact plus fact equals opinion. I'm explaining what I mean. So you may have 2 star basketball players. You will have Steph Curry, you will have LeBron James. How could that equal the opinion? Steph Curry could be better than LeBron James, vice versa. This is a prime example of how we can have different facts, but have different opinions on it. I could say that an apple is red. She could say that an apple is green, but they're both apples, right? So the opinion would be, which one is better? Which one is more healthier? Which one is whatever? It doesn't matter which is healthier, which is which. They're both apples. They're both facts. So one thing that I caught on was that what is a fact? What would you consider? I know what's a fact. She knows what's a fact. But why is this such a big controversial on why it would be like opinionized? I'm sorry. I may believe, like I said before, I may believe that I know a fact. She may not agree with my fact, but it's a fact. So I just had to bring it.
Complicated.
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean. Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
So what was I gonna say? So I feel that the term fact and opinion is sort of blurred because in the end of it, a fact just gives, definition and concrete place to where you can say something is undeniably right. So what is right versus left? You can say what goes up must come down, but we gave definition to up and down. What if it's what goes down must go up? So once you look at it from a different perspective, it changes everything.
I feel like facts are like, it depends how you argue. So we had like in English class, we had like this prompt where which one is healthier, apples or Snickers? You obviously say apples, but then once you break down the Snickers, it has peanuts, it has protein, it has caramel. So it's all how you argue, like however you argue it is what can become like a fact. I feel like it's all based on how strong your argument is, and that's when the common people are going to say, oh, well, that's a fact because he had all these points, rather than, oh, an apple comes out of the tree, it's healthy, it has natural sugar, rather than, oh, not taking account on other aspects and stuff.
And some topics don't have facts. Like, speaking about ethics and politics, it's never one way or the other, and that makes people very, very uncomfortable. But as humans, I feel like we are able to exceed that discomfort and change the way we think about things, about everything. So, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. So what we'll do at this time is our panelists will go back to their tables. What we'll be doing, we're going to have our tabletop leaders come to your table, and you'll be discussing a topic. So we talked a little bit this morning so far about being disenfranchised, what it means to be engaged again, to be brought back into the fold. And one of the things that is common amongst every single person in this room, we all have this exact same thing. Every single one of you, at one point or another, for one reason or another, has been disenfranchised. You've been made to feel that you're not part of something. You've been made to believe you're not part of the whole. You've been put in a position by someone else to feel as though you're not good enough, or that you've been put in a position where you do not feel you have the ability or the tools or the talent to be reinvigorated again. Well, we're going to discuss at our tabletops, along with your leaders, what were those moments? What did they feel like? And what could you have done differently? You're a little bit older now. You have a little more knowledge. What is something that you could tell yourself then on what you can do differently to become re-engaged? And as we're discussing that, it'll move into a natural discussion that you'll talk about. Moving forward, how can you be part of the wave of the movement to re-engage those around you? You're here. You get to listen. You get to discuss. When you go back to your schools, they weren't. They might not know some of the things we're discussing today. You might see that one person in your school system, in your district, in your community, in your friend group, in your family, who does get disenfranchised, does get disengaged. How can you take what you're talking about at the table and move that ball forward for them as well? So give us a few moments. We'll make sure each table has someone at your table to discuss with you. Initially, it'll be a slow move because everyone's a little bit shy. But as you can see with our panel, once they caught fire, there was no stopping them. So be patient with each other. Be open-minded. Let this be a safe space if need be. Let this be a brave space as well. And we'll start discussing as soon as we make sure every table has a moderator. Thank you, everyone. All right, welcome back. I hope your small group discussions were productive, plentiful. And so what we'll do now is we'll bring it back to a whole. I invited our panelists back up, and I'll explain why. All right? So what we'll do for this portion is we'll give you an opportunity where people can raise their hands, discuss about a little bit about what they talked about. Every table probably had a different discussion. In addition, we will give you the opportunity where you'll be able to, if you have any questions that you want, if, say, you were talking about something and you thought of a question that you'd like either me to have the panel talk to you about what they think their answers would be, what their opinions are, or if you're broaching it to the entire group, that's what we're going to talk about right now. I open the floor, I open it to you. Who has something on their mind from their discussion, or has a question for our panel, or if our panel has something they want to discuss, let's put it out there. Go ahead, please.
So I would like to give a brief explanation of what my group has discussed. My group consists of Pleasantville and AC, Bridging the Gap. We mainly had a small, safe space. We all got to know each other. We all got to know, especially about the seniors. One thing that was good about our group, we had freshmen, sophomore, junior, and seniors. So we got a little taste of everything. So we have discussed what colleges seniors were going to, how their process is, what they need help on. We have discussed how Stockton had programs that could help assist with filling out applications, looking for colleges, and financial issues. We've also discussed our biggest takeaways from today, from our panel discussion from earlier. We discussed how they have learned how to be themselves, how they learned what disenfranchised means, and how we can apply it to ourselves. So, does anyone have any questions?
Thanks for sharing that portion of what you all discussed. Anyone else have something that they would like to say or talk about or bring up? Go for it.
My table was just all my class, basically.
Okay.
And we talked a lot about representation, which is really, really important. We discussed things as high school cliques based on race. We touched on colorism, unequal pay in the workplace. And I kind of want to bring up a story a little bit. So I take AP Art History, and the kind of advisor for Ocean City's history department was coming into our AP Art History class to observe, because they're thinking about incorporating the class into their curriculum. I mean, into one of their course selections. So, and that class, we just so happened to talk about, we were talking about Muslim art. And we were all talking about how, like, the 5 pillars of Islam are represented in some forms of Muslim art. And the advisor for the history department from Ocean City was so blown away by how our class even knew so much about Islam. And I feel like it's sort of a shame, because I feel like that kind of knowledge of such a religion that's so prominent throughout the world should be more taught about, you know? So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you for sharing.
Thought that was important.
Absolutely. Anyone else have something they want to contribute, discuss, question?
I would like to add like what my group talked about,
Please.
which I felt is like very important. We talked about like what it is to be like in a minority in a predominantly white situation, especially school, and how we're looked at in our actions and how they're viewed. And I brought up the fact that when I was going to a different school, I was the only black kid in the English, in the honors program, and it was weird. Like, it was just looking at each other. It was just weird. Like, I felt like I couldn't connect with the kids, and I couldn't connect with the teacher. And there would be time, like in history class, we would have debates, and it would be like, it's me versus the whole class. And the teacher would be like, oh, well, I understand, like, but they don't understand because they're not you, and they don't know your struggles, and how it's important that me talking, I have to talk a certain way to be respected. I have to talk a certain way to not be, oh, you're too loud, you're too extra, coming off that way, and how important it is to have role models that look like you. Right. Like at EHT, there was not a lot of teachers that looked like me. The only teacher that I known was actually Coach Bell. That's the only, and he wasn't even my teacher. That's the only African American teacher that I seen, and it was weird to me how I couldn't relate to anyone in that classroom because we weren't the same. It was predominantly white people and predominantly Asians, and it was just, I felt less, and I had to use bigger words to feel as smart as them because they would try to downplay you and say, oh, no, you don't know about that. And a kid at my table, he actually brought up a good point, and he said that when he's in his AP classes, he has to make sure he speaks correctly. He has to make sure he does everything correctly, because if he does something wrong, everyone's going to say, oh, well, that's how all black people act. And that's not true, because we were saying how even though we're African American, we're all from different cultures. There's Haitians, there's Africans, and everyone just puts them in one thing and say, oh, they're all black and they all behave the same way, and that's not true. So I felt like we need to create like diversity, more diversity, and we were just talking about how how we felt disenfranchised just by the way that we talk, the way that we look, the way that we wear our hair, and how everything, it was just like how the world works and how they view certain groups, because that's what they're known and that's what they're taught. And it was another situation where we brought up, having like when you have school projects and you want to go to someone else's house, and it was weird for me because no one wants to come to my house because my house don't look like their house. And it's like, oh, well, we're not going to go there because it's too small. But they wouldn't know, and they just makes assumptions. Like, everyone makes assumptions because you're black or you're Spanish or you're Middle Eastern, that you are less of what they are, and which is not true. And being at like EHT, there was like, I always felt like apart from the community, just because the classes that I had, I was the only one in there. Not saying that there isn't anyone there. I was the only one in that certain class, and I felt like I had to prove myself more. I had to work harder to get the same grade that someone else could get easily. And it's just like more like, I don't want to say like embarrassing, but at times I will feel embarrassed when I answer the question wrong. Yeah, I'll be discouraged, and I'll answer the question wrong, and it's like, oh dang, like now I'm like, it just like puts this pressure on you that you have to be the best. You have to outshine yourself, outprove yourself, just because you have one thing holding you back, which is your race. You have to work harder. We have to do things harder. We have to go harder. We have to go to prove ourselves by going to Harvard. We have to go harder to be respected for the same position as someone else that is a minority, like that isn't a minority. Like, it was just a lot that we were discussing that I felt was very important.
I want to bring up when you said that you felt, when you got an answer wrong, you felt discouraged. Again, we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to say the wrong answer. That's life. I don't want you to ever feel discouraged if you ever said anything wrong, if you ever felt like you're in the wrong spot. You're human.
True. Like, my mic is off. Is it off? Oh my God. Oh, like, that's true. And people do have that mindset, but being in that environment, it's like, even though we all get the wrong answer, it's like, but why would you say that? Like, kids look at you like, why would you even say that?
Like,
No.
oh, it's a black girl.
Yeah, oh, that black girl just answered the question wrong. Or how I answer it, if I say it in a way, oh, why is she mad? Like, I'm not mad. This is how I talk. This is how I'm expressing myself. Just because it's coming off, it shouldn't even come off. This is just how I express myself.
You're just passionate.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not angry. I'm not that angry black girl that they want you to be. That when they keep downplaying you, it's, oh, they want you to react. And we had Mr. Angel, I forget his last name, sorry. But he was telling us how you don't have to always react. And we find ourselves trying to react, and we're going to, like, give those stereotypes, and they're going to allow those stereotypes to be true, which that's what they want. So for you to be like, oh, don't be discouraged. Yeah, we try not to be discouraged, but it's still that, like, emotion there, because that's what, like, they're discouraging you. Like, the kids are like, oh, well, she answered that question wrong. She must have not studied. Oh, she doesn't study because she's probably doing this. Or she's not as smart as you. Or she's not as smart as me. She doesn't know this. She doesn't know that. And it's, why don't I know that? We're given the same opportunity, but the opportunity for you and the opportunity for me is different. I have to work harder. I have to go harder. I have to strive harder to be where you're going to be, which you don't have to do the same steps as me. Like, we have to go harder to be in the same position as someone else. They don't have to work as hard.
Yeah.
The one thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I feel like I have a different perspective than my peers here on this panel, because, they're African American and female. So females have a different experience versus males, as well as, minority groups and, male and female points. So you made a lot of good points, and I do at this time want to validate you as well as everyone else in this room that you do have a voice, you are important, and despite any imperfections, you are worth it. I battled depression for a number of years, trying to, line up to this place of perfection that they need you to be in. Because for my experience, unfortunately, you do need to be close to perfect to be considered for anything, And
Especially when you're a person of color.
yeah. So like just to open it up to the floor, how do you guys feel, trying to, does she have a question?
Well, I was also in Ileana's group, and then, I'm sorry about my voice, but I agree with what Mecca and Ileana were saying. Our group was kind of talking about how being a minority and like minority culture at our school, it kind of, it reinforces disengagement within students. And it's because of that feeling of isolation and separation from everyone else. There really is like a power with a group of people, and we don't really have that when we're in classes. We feel separated, and that's considering like what creates disengagement and disenfranchisement at our school. That's what fuels it. That's what really pushes youth to feel as if they're not listened to or not engaged in actual problems at our school. That's the root cause of it, is that we feel powerless. And like exactly what Mecca was saying, I remember we were in honors camp together, and we were like the only 3 dark-skinned girls, and we were kind of like struggling, and it feels like really just
Like you're being singled out?
Yeah, it feels like you're being singled out, and then it also feels like you have to prove yourself, and you're not as good as everyone else, and everyone's always like staring at you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Sarah, we were in the same chemistry class, and it was like chemistry. To me, I personally think that chemistry was hard. So at first I wasn't the type of person to ask questions, because when I asked questions, I just felt like even if I asked them, they're still not going to understand what I'm trying to say. So I would go after school, and it was many times where me and Sarah would actually go after school and ask for help. And when we were asked for help, she would tell us, "Oh, Sarah, teach Mecca. Mecca, teach Sarah." But we're both here for help. And it was just frustrating. And then when you would go to someone, there was this girl in our class, she was really good at it, and we would go and I would ask her for help, but she would think that I'm here for her answers. And I'm like, I don't want your answers, I don't want the homework, I just want to understand how you figured out the problem and what I'm doing wrong. But it was just like this disconnection. Oh, she just wants to answer. She's not trying, but I'm trying. I'm going after school. I'm going out of my way to figure out how to pass in this class. And it was just hard, and it was just frustrating. It made me sometimes like, why did I even take this class? Because it's only 3 of us. It was me, Sarah, Christabel, the only black minorities, not even black, just dark-skinned people in there. And it was just, when we sat in the back, like we all sat in a cluster, and it was like we would have to help each other out and then get in trouble for helping each other out. Oh, why are you guys talking? Why are you guys asking questions? But when we ask you questions, you're not understanding our questions. And if we try to explain furthermore, it's, oh, go get a textbook or review your notes. We don't understand our notes. We don't understand the textbook. We need help from you. We need help from the people who do understand and break down what we're not getting and help us. And it was too much to ask that, because it felt like I already asked you for help, and now I have to beg and plead for you to help me even more. And I don't want to be that person to beg and plead, because that's just like humiliating. I don't want to have to keep asking you the same question on how can I get this question right? How can I figure this out? I already asked you, and for you not to help me the first time, and for you to have to tell me to go to someone who also doesn't understand the same concept that we're learning was like discouraging and make you not even want to take the class. Right. It was just annoying, very annoying.
So I have a question for anyone who's willing to answer. Do you feel that color affects why the youth may feel disenfranchised? Not even just the youth, maybe everyone in general. maybe that'll play a major role in why people may feel disenfranchised.
Is this okay? I just wanted to say, like, I don't know. I have an unpopular opinion, I guess, because the way I was raised, my family taught me almost like you have to strive and you have to be better and you can't ask for help. Mm-hmm. It was particularly white people, like, sorry, but they told me almost you can't ask for help from them because they'll see you as something less and they'll make generalizations about us. Yes. So when I was in school and I was struggling, I went to school with all, I'm not gonna say all white people, but there was maybe 10 black people in my school, and I could never ask for help. And from that preconception that I got from my parents on this racial divide, it made it hard for me to ever get anywhere because I couldn't comfortably go out of my race to ask for help because I had already had this preconception that it was gonna make me seem like less. So I think it's just, if you make a racial divide and you set people on different levels, it's hard for people to communicate and develop because we're taught not to interact like everybody else. That's just kind of how I feel about it.
With a spin-off on what he said, my father, like, he always told me, like, Mecca, when you do this, you have to do your best, because if you go to a job interview and they see that your name is Mecca Muhammad and you're a female and you're African American and you're a Muslim, it's so many factors that, like, X factors, like, oh, wait, we don't want to hire her. And, like, as someone name is, like, John Smith, like, my dad always told me, you have to strive, you have to go harder than other people because we're not like them, and we have to work harder. And to get that same job, if we're required, we put the work in. We both did the same thing to get that interview. Just because of those factors, you might not get the job. Like, that's what my father taught me, as, like, we taught us all growing up, you have to go harder. So, like I said, it was hard for me to ask questions and ask teachers for help because it was like, oh, you need help? Why are you in my class? Why are you in honors if you need help? Oh, why are you writing like this if you're in honors? There was a teacher told me, like, oh, you're writing like you're speaking. Like, well, if you're my English teacher and I'm writing like I'm speaking, why aren't you helping me? Why aren't you trying to correct that? Why are you just telling me, oh, you get a C because you're writing like you're speaking? I just needed help, and when you go for help, it's, oh, dude, don't you remember grammar class? Don't you remember this? Like, okay, obviously if I'm getting it wrong, I need help, and I'm asking for help, and you're denying help by belittling me, which makes me not want to go to you anymore. Right. And it just creates a separation where kids, we don't want to ask for help anymore. And not even just black kids or Hispanic kids. We don't want to ask for help because there's teachers who look at you and say, oh, well, if you need help, you don't need to be in my class. You need to go down to college prep. You need to go down to academic. You shouldn't be in this class then if you need my help, which shouldn't be true because everyone needs help, rather if they have all A's or all D's. We all need help. We're not perfect. We don't all understand like the subject as well. And like for chemistry, I was good at math, but because I wasn't showing my work how she wanted it shown, I would get C's on my on my test because the work wasn't shown, but the answer would still be correct. So it was just like, it was very frustrating, and it was like, I can't go to, I'm not asking you for help again when I went to you multiple times for help. I just feel like I'm doing too much, like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, sorry.
So,
I
I don't mean to cut off. I do want to let the one more person get to speak, and then we do have to start to wrap up, not because I don't appreciate the conversation, but we do want to make sure we get you some food before we have to have you depart. So I do apologize for cutting off. So please share your piece.
So to answer her question,
Yes.
and to piggyback off what Mecca said, I feel like people see colored, like we get looked at different. People will see a name or we are females and they be like, oh yeah, we don't want her, before you even give the person a chance. Or I feel like
when you're filling out an application and they ask you, like, what's your race, sometimes I don't answer it because I feel like if they see an African American or a Hispanic, some people don't want us because they think that we're not capable of doing the same job as a white person can do. And I feel like you should like try to get to know the person before you turn them down.
Because isn't that what we're learned to do? Right.
Exactly.
We're learned to know each other before we judge each other. Yeah. Isn't that why the saying, never judge a book by its cover, made? It's not just for the same race, for everybody.
I appreciate everyone who has shared here. I also do appreciate that once we got the ball rolling, all of you were so willing and open in sharing. I want to close us out before we eat lunch in surmising what my table talked about, because I think it applies to what many of you did discuss. Our table talked about not necessarily what makes us different, but in that at any point, everyone at our table has found some way or form where they've struggled. And if they didn't feel that was the case, was mature enough to accept and say, I didn't struggle. But the commonality between all of us is that one, we're all human. Two, every single one of us at some point either has struggled or has been brought up by someone who struggled and works to keep us out of that struggle. One of the hardest things for anyone to do is to have your own self-worth not met by external factors who put less worth on you. You all came here today from different spaces, different places. You have different homes. You have different support structures. You have different beliefs. You have different grades. You have different interests. But the one commonality between you all is that from 8:30 in the morning until when you leave here at noon, you all came together today and listened. At no point did I see anyone try to cut someone off and say you're wrong. On the contrary, I saw support for each other, questions for each other, if you will, a brave space for each other. The most important thing you can do as an individual is not only to keep your own self-worth, but to identify and understand other people's self-worth as well. If you're in a position where you go into a course and you walk in and you take notice, you go, not a lot of people look like me. That immediately puts you in a position where you feel the potential less worth than what you value yourself at. And in those instances, I challenge you to do three things, regardless of why you feel someone's challenging your self-worth. One, do not lose your own self-worth. Remember the value of you. Two, you remember someone will come behind you. Pave that space so the next person behind you, however far you're able to push the value of someone like you, they don't have to start at the beginning again. They can pick up where you leave off in that space. And three, remember, maybe they won't be the quietest voice in the room. Maybe they won't be the individual that makes the most commotion. There are people out there who see you for the self-worth you are. I can tell you right now, if you look in this room, look at the staff. Angel, Sharon, Trish, everyone who's here, they see you for your self-worth. We don't do this because we get paid to do it. We don't do this because, let's just have some fun and get out of doing quote-unquote work. We do this at Stockton because we see your self-worth. And there will be people out there that will not, but there are people out there that believe in you. And the moments where you don't feel that there are, remember the first person you see when you wake up and the last person you know when you go to sleep. It's yourself. Do not put yourself in a position where your self-worth is ever challenged. If people want to challenge what they believe you're worth, that's fine. That means their evaluation is wrong. Surround yourself with people that understand your worth. As we close out today, we discussed the role of youth in the movement, changing the disenfranchised to the engaged. All of you have expressed at one point or another feeling disenfranchised. That you might feel that your self-worth is not what your actual street value is. But I can assure you, and I promise you this, the farther you move the agenda, the farther you push the path forward, it'll be easier for those before you. The whole idea behind Martin Luther King Jr. and what he tried to do, and those who came before him, and those who came after, was to push the value forward, push the agenda forward. You being here today pushes it forward. If you said not a single thing at your table, but you listened, and the next time you're in a space where you see someone's self-worth being challenged, maybe you don't have the ability to speak up in that moment. But if you go to that person on the side and go, I'm sorry you went through that, that is making a difference. If you are able to stand up and say something in the moment, that is making a difference. If you're able to go to someone you trust at your school and say, hey, this is what's happening, that is making a difference. Whatever it is you do something. Say something. You've heard that phrase, be the change you want to see in the world, right? And you've also heard the phrase, do unto others as you wish to be treated yourself, right? The core concept of all those is projecting your self-worth on the world and making sure others' self-worth is also valued. In closing, take this as not just one day, as one moment, as one time. Look around the room, see the faces. I talked about this at my table. When you go back to your schools and you see someone from here, I don't expect you to be best friends in every instance, but you share a commonality where you know what that person feels, how that person views themselves, how they feel others view them. And if you're not the person who views them that way, let them know. And if you are someone who sees them feeling devalued, tell them you know what they're worth. Thank you so much for all of you being a part of this.
Now, I was going to say, since this is our 5th annual Martin Luther King panel discussion, this has been, as Bryant said, a labor of love for the committee. And before everyone leave, we want to take a group picture so we can share it with your school administrators. So if you want to post it on your Facebook or your LinkedIn or whatever you do, you are important to us. So, and we're glad you're here. We know each and every one of you did learn something, and hey, you rock. It's all about you. Believe in yourself, and you can do anything. All right? Thank you.
I am truly encouraged by the conversations that I've heard. I am anxious to see you all connect with the people in this room who have been here volunteering their time to speak with you. We have brought resources here for you. Take advantage of them, okay? They are here for you. We are here for you. Continue the conversation when you leave this room. Continue to support each other and encourage each other. And I am feeling truly blessed to have been in this room with you all and hearing your thoughts. So go forward, be proud, be prosperous, and do your thing. Thank you.
And again, as we close, I just echo everything that the committee has said. It's truly an honor for us to share space with you all. We do this not for homage, but we do it because we truly believe in each and every student and the bright futures that you have. We look forward to seeing you around Stockton University's campus, whether it's Galloway or Atlantic City. And again, as we had in our discussion at our group, always remember that the only person that can stop your success is you.